Okay, Kristen, since it's Halloween, I actually had a little interesting conversation with a coworker today. Kind of has to do with something a little spooky. So he asked me if his seller has to disclose a death in the home of natural causes, which I immediately laughed at because we've both been doing this for 15 years. And it has never come up, and I'm sure we've had clients who've died in the home. So I don't know why he was asking me that, but it's just something we don't normally talk about.
Yeah, I would almost assume that any house in Philadelphia, with it being as old as it is, someone has died in that home.
Mm-hmm.
In some way.
Especially in the historic districts,
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, I would think so. Well, it's funny that you say that because I was just looking at this article that I thought was really funny, and it's got it actually touches on that. So I wanted to share it with you. I don't know, should I? Maybe I'll just kind of read it with you and see what you think, and feel free to jump in if you want to comment on it. But it touches on a lot of things that I think were kind of fun, and with it being Halloween this week, I thought this was a good one. Okay, so basically the title of the article is "Should Haunted Homes Come with a Warning? What Realtors and Paranormal Experts Say." That's the title.
Haunted homes.
Haunted homes, yeah. So should haunted homes should they come with a warning, right? It was nearly 20 years ago, but Cindy Hagley, a realtor in California's Bay Area, still remembers being alone inside a home in Antioch where she swore she spotted something out of the corner of her eye. Hagley, who left a career as an ABC TV executive in 2006, hosted an open house for the property the following afternoon. A neighbor arrived eager to see the inside, and that's when she learned the scary home had a decades-long reputation of being haunted. Hagley later informed the seller of this interesting feedback. They told her, "Oh yeah, we've got a ghost."
The seller said that?
Yeah.
The seller said that they had a ghost.
Yeah.
And the realtor finds out about it at the open house from a neighbor.
Yep, exactly. She felt something funny about it, and she was right. She wondered what would happen if she started marketing the home as haunted. And when she did, the interest spiked. This is so interesting. I love creative marketing. This is good.
We've seen these signs before, which is kind of fun. We'll talk about that.
Yep. So her marketing strategy worked out in her favor, although she ultimately sold the home to buyers who didn't believe in ghosts. She first made her mark selling homes rumored to be haunted, including the first one she ever sold in Antioch, but she's not a haunted house realtor, quote-unquote, as some folks claim to be. Nowadays, Hagley, who grew up in West Virginia and Ohio and lived in homes she believes were haunted, takes a different approach and no longer markets homes as potentially haunted, she said. Nor do I disclose it until we're already in contract.
That's
a little, yeah.
That's such a weird.
That's a weird one.
You're basically saying you're going to tell the buyer that it's haunted, according to whom, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're going to wait until after it's under agreement?
Yeah.
A little shady.
And I wonder if you could back out over that.
A little
that
shady.
I don't know. Well, here we go. In California, disclosing a potential haunting isn't required or mentioned by state law. This is similar for the majority of states in the U.S., according to a recent Zillow analysis. However, a few states, you'll find this interesting, Bill, Minnesota, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York do have laws mentioning paranormal activity when it comes to real estate. In Minnesota, there's no duty for sellers to disclose if a home is the site of a suicide, accidental death, or natural death, or perceived paranormal activity, according to state law. Carrie Ann Carter, a realtor with Edna Realty, a top-producing broker in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, has represented over 1,000 homes for sale in the past 25 years. Of these homes, she's come across about 5 she believes were potentially haunted, which she says is rare. In regards to disclosures, despite there being no requirement in the state to do so, Carter views it as unnecessary to mention if a home comes with potential ghosts and describes doing so as an opening a can of worms because it's subjective.
Well, yeah.
Right?
I mean, you could imagine trying to tell someone the house is haunted. Like, you couldn't even do it with a straight face.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't even know, like, how would you even... I don't even know, like...
I don't either.
It's so funny. When they say it's like a state law, it's like, well,
according to
declares...
Who? Right.
Well, like, who declares it haunted? Like, what governing body... You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right, keep going.
Yeah, so this one says certain details that do need to be disclosed, as we know, to buyers in Minnesota relate to the physical condition of the property, such as mold, prior zoning violations, or criminal activities, specifically whether methamphetamine was manufactured inside the home. That's an interesting one.
That I get. I mean,
I get it too.
I've been in inspections where this came up. And
really?
the inspector was giving us signs to look for in the house.
No.
With like potential meth labs in homes. And for some reason, it came up because there was like almost every door in the home had a hole in it, like a fist hole. Like a couple fist holes going through the doors.
Oh.
And he's like, this is a sign of like and he was dead serious, and I couldn't figure out why, which is weird because I think you could get sick if you're walking around in a methamphetamine contaminated, like where there was that process going on in the property. I think if you're just walking around in there, you can get sick.
Wow, that's interesting.
Don't quote me, folks. We're not interested. We're not experts on the methamphetamine labs.
We are not. So, we are definitely not.
This is all hearsay.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so as for potential hauntings, Carter, who describes herself as a very in tune with energy, believes they can happen, but they're not as frequent as people think they are. On one occasion, she had a bizarre experience when showing a family home along Summit Avenue in St. Paul, where there's a large amount of historical homes. While walking up the home staircase, she said she suddenly felt as if she walked through an ice-cold wall, turned around, and tripped down the stairs. She said she felt as if she had been pushed. I looked at the family and said, this isn't the right property. We need to go now. She said, is that a regular occurrence? No, you either resonate with that and believe in it or you don't. Later, she was told that a murder took place in the property.
Whoa. That I would think you need to disclose. I would think you need to disclose that.
I think you do. So I do think that if a murder happened in a property, you do have to disclose it. If someone died of natural causes, obviously you don't. And I don't know about suicide. I think that's one of those that I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, actually.
I guess it varies from state to state because it's about a stigmatized home. That's what we're looking at here. The home would be considered stigmatized if it has those things. So the article continues.
Activity.
Yeah. The article continues. Similar to Minnesota, Massachusetts state law specifically mentions perceived paranormal phenomena as something that doesn't need to be disclosed ahead of the sale of a home. There's no way to prove paranormal activity, obviously. There's a lot bigger subjects that have to be discussed, like affordability, meeting the needs of a client, blah, blah, blah. In New York in 1991, the state Supreme Court ruled one home in Nyack, a village nestled along the Hudson River, I've been there actually, it's really nice, about an hour's drive of New York City, was haunted as a matter of law. This is interesting.
That's insane.
This is interesting.
We need the background on that.
Right?
We might have to Google
this. It's such a cute little town. It's like a little Hudson Valley kind of town.
That's where the poltergeist activity usually happens, as little towns.
Amityville Horror, wasn't that Long Island or something?
Go.
The ruling stemmed from how a buyer sued the woman who sold him the home after she didn't tell him it was haunted, a reputation she helped perpetuate. As a result, the man filed suit to rescind the contract of sale, according to Cornell's Law School Legal Information Institute. Plaintiff, to his horror, discovered that the house he had recently contracted to purchase was widely reputed to be possessed by poltergeists. The judge wrote. Oh my gosh.
The judge wrote that?
Yeah. While the home's owner, I guess.
The Conjuring?
Yeah. While the home's owner, Helen Acklicky, reported the existence of special apparitions in her home to the media, which once described her home as a riverfront Victorian with ghost. She made no mention of paranormal activity to Jeffrey Samboski from New York City. I guess he was the buyer, the person buying it. The state Supreme Court's division ruled in favor of Stamvinsky, arguing Ackley should have disclosed the purported hauntings to him as she did to the public. The ruling rescinded the contract of sale and allowed Stamvinsky the recovery of his down payment. That's interesting.
I mean, isn't he the public?
Yeah.
I mean, you put it out there on the news, so...
So you think maybe he should have done his due diligence prior to going under contract? I don't know. I read
something about New Jersey where it said you don't have to disclose it unless the buyer asks.
That actually says that here. I think it does say that here. Yeah.
I need to go back and look on the seller's disclosure to see if there's a line for haunted.
There's nothing
Is
in the
property
Pennsylvania.
haunted?
Yeah.
Check yes or no or unknown.
That is so funny. It says if a seller believes their home is haunted and it's known throughout the community, I think without a doubt that seller should not only tell the agent but allow the agent to disclose that information to potential buyers.
Okay, if I get that. Like if you buy a famous home that the neighborhood has,
if everybody knows it,
said,
but you,
right? If everybody said it's been haunted and they're doing tours of your property and all that stuff,
yeah,
something you might want to include.
This is like a bad horror movie right now. This says Kathy Eastman, a medium and team member of the Paranormal Investigators of New England, an organization founded in 2004 that conducts paranormal investigations free of charge, lived in a home she and her family believed was haunted in New Jersey as a child. When my parents sold their haunted house, they did disclose it, Eastman said, before her family moved to Vermont in 1975. In New Jersey law, certain psychological impairments related to a home, including a property being haunted, don't need to be disclosed unless the potential buyer asks about it. So this is what you were just saying.
Right,
if the buyer asks, they have to say. Okay. Eastman said she and her parents felt a potential buyer should know if the house was haunted before the sale. If I'm buying the Amityville horror house, I don't actually know the background of it, but I think that should be disclosed. Or the Conjuring house, she said.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, this goes on and on. This woman
That's so
was
funny.
on the TV series Ghost Hunters. It's just so interesting.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a haunted house, Kristin? Grew up in Downingtown. It's like a weird small area.
Yeah,
weird
so
shit
I
happens.
mean, I definitely, I feel like if you grow up in the suburbs or in a kind of rural area, every town has that place that is scary. Like we had this Gates of Hell, it was called. It was down the road from where my parents lived. It was on this it was when the road kind of turned into a dirt road. It sort of stopped being pavement and it turned into a dirt road. And there was this big house up on the hill. I believe it was abandoned and it had gates around it. And of course, teenagers had broken through the gates, and the windows were broken. The house was, in disrepair. And it sat up on this hill and you couldn't see it from the street. And it was called the Gates of Hell. And everybody said that there were paranormal things happening there. And I went with friends, but we didn't go into the house. I was too scared, I think at the time.
I didn't think you'd go in.
No. And then there's also in Downingtown, in town, there's a tunnel that you drive through. And people have often said that there have been sightings of things in that tunnel when you're driving through it. Those are the two things in my town that I recall. But yeah, how about you?
Downingtown seems like it might have some haunted shit. You know, doesn't it?
It's an old
town.
Got
it's got a little creepy vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
It's been a while since I've been there, but it was creepy.
Yeah, thanks.
I thought, jokingly, I used to say that this house that I was renting when I was in tech, this is years ago, but I rented this house for 7 years, and I thought there was weird stuff that happened in the house.
Yeah?
I'll leave it. Well, yeah. Weird stuff. Here's what would happen in the house. So,
yeah, you can't leave it at that.
yeah, I can't leave it there, right?
Thank you very much.
So I just heard a lot of stuff in the house. It sounded like somebody was walking around, and multiple times throughout the years, I would have to get up out of bed in the middle of the night and walk the house because I thought somebody was inside. So that happened a lot. And then sometimes when I would take that walk, the sink would be on in the bathroom.
Oh, that's
the
weird.
water would be running, not full blast, but it'd be running, trickling out. And I'm
Yeah.
what the? And that would happen in the sink downstairs in the kitchen.
Huh.
So,
Interesting.
And then I just had these. It was a vibe thing. It was just
Yeah.
totally like that. So just to give you an example, so I had when I moved into it was a small 2-bedroom house, and I had my bed in the front room. But I just couldn't sleep in there. I have weird vibes in there. It was always cold, too cold, colder than the rest of the house.
Yeah.
So I moved out of the room.
Well, that's a sure sign.
And I moved to the back room. And then, but I left the bed in there. I bought another bed, so when I have guests, I'm sleeping there.
Oh my God.
So, because what would happen is when I would sleep in that room, it's starting to come back to me as I'm telling the story. So it's been a while. But I always shut my door when I go to bed.
Yeah.
You know? And then in the middle of the night, the door would just like and just start going and just start opening. You know, so I couldn't. It would never stay shut, right? So.
Oh my God.
So I used to take
move.
I used to take like a little towel, and as I go to shut the door, I would toss the towel like between the jamb and then jam the towel in, so there's no way the door can open again. So then the door would stay shut, you know. So I had my buddy come in from out of town, and I put him in that room. He's like, "Dude, it's freezing in here," and I was like, "Yeah. Well, good night." And I go to shut the door. And I'm like rigging this towel into the door jamb. He's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "You're really just going to not explain this? What you're doing right now?" And I said, "Listen, don't ask questions that you don't want the answers to." And I slammed the door shut.
Oh my
I shut the light and slammed the door shut. He was like, "Dude," and I see him like pulling the covers up to his eyeballs. He's like, "No," and I slammed the door. I went to bed.
Oh my God.
He got all freaked out. He wouldn't sleep back there. I had to get a blow-up mattress and throw it on my floor in the back room.
Oh my God.
Oh man,
that's really funny.
Yeah.
That is really funny. I've definitely gotten like vibes and feelings being in places, you know, like a sense of something, but not like a bad feeling. I know, like with our house in Mount Airy, it was the woman who had lived there was like just this really accomplished woman, and she was like in the very first graduating class at Penn, like one of the first African Americans in the first class of Penn to graduate. And she became like a psychiatrist, and she was like a really interesting woman. And when we went to look at the house, it had all of her degrees and everything on the, you know, still up. And she just seemed like, you know, of course I Googled her and did all this research on her, and she just seemed like a fascinating woman. Well, she had died. The house had been left to like her granddaughter or something, and it had totally fallen into disrepair. It was going into foreclosure. Like she was using like kerosene heaters to heat the house. She didn't have the gas on. It was just a mess when we bought this house. We saved it from foreclosure. And as we slowly were working on it, I just felt this sense of, there were like little things, like little tapping and little things. I felt this sense of this woman, her name was Bobby, like being happy that we were restoring the house and making it. We heard stories about her, how she used to like entertain and have people over, and like she was like friends with like the superintendent of the school, and she would do all these gatherings and things at the house and entertain. And I just felt like I felt like there was a presence, but I felt like it was like a welcoming presence, like someone who was very happy that we were there bringing it back. That's a really weird feeling, but Billy and I both felt it. We were like that. We would lay in bed and hear this tapping, and I was like, "That's just Bobby. It's no problem." I didn't feel like a scared. It wasn't a scared thing. It was like a calming kind of thing. Like we were doing something right by her.
I totally get that. Every home has a vibe. I'm not saying every home's haunted, but every home we go into, don't you feel a vibe?
Yeah.
Even when people are
absolutely.
Especially when we go in like vacant homes, your mind automatically starts telling you this story as you're walking through. And I remember I was working with this investor years ago who would buy these older properties and, you know, gut them and renovate them, and you know, and then we resell them. So we're walking through this one, and we didn't talk at all. We were both walking. And we get through the whole house, and we're in the basement. And we didn't talk. It's just got to be 10 minutes. We're just walking. And we get to the basement, and he looks at me, and he goes, "I can't do this house." And I went, "I get it." And basically what it was the house it needed to be renovated, but it was like you could tell, like, because we saw some of the belongings. We could tell it was like an old Army vet. And the house was like meticulous. And he didn't want to rip anything out and redo it.
Yeah.
But it was priced where, that's what we would have to do to it. And I was like, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
The dude was so organized. Everything was meticulous. You just felt this, like, you felt like how much like care this man took of this property. And we were both like, I don't want to even see this thing, you know what I mean, ripped up.
Yeah.
So we'll just go. And we left.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it's the vibe. You definitely get a vibe.
All right, Kristin, this has been fun talking about haunted houses for Halloween, but we got to get back to work.
We do.
All right, I'll see you at happy hour.
Okay, see you at happy hour.